5 going up the East Coast, right next to this giant tower in Delaware.
What's the ribbon say, Sarah? My glasses.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, folks, you're free to move up. It said it was a blue ribbon for ozone destruction, #1 in ozone destruction.
Yeah, it does feel like there's some people being kind of pushed almost outside the tent because we haven't kind of.
Feel free to come in because it's a really small screen that Backbone gave me here.
They only like big projections.
It's your big screen, man. All right. So this is the 50th anniversary of the World Bank on the side of the World Bank. We had to impersonate world bankers. So I had to get dressed up in a suit that day. I was carrying this squash bag, so I looked like I was going to the squash court after work. It had like 75 or 90 pounds of gear in it, so I was trying to carry it like it was just some squash rackets.
This is the weighted banner. Gedden showed us a bunch of really amazing action photos the other day. But there's see the people.
Yeah, it's a pretty big banner. I think that's like 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet. This is a really simple action. That's a complicated action. Lots of money, lots of climbers, and lots of technical stuff. This is a really beautiful action as well. A bunch of Tyvek suits. They cost $2, and we were going after DuPont again for ozone destruction. We built this mock toxic waste incinerator, spewing smoke. We had a smoke machine inside this truck, and we had 15 people from this little town in Ohio chained around underneath the truck, inside the truck, shutting down Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House. And then we had folks from like 150 people from different struggles against incinerators all across the country handcuffed around them.
A question.
Yeah.
Did you all flatten tires on the truck?
We had people locked over the truck in angled iron lock boxes over the axle, lying on either side of the tires, so you would have killed them to move the thing. They had to get inside the truck first, and then they took the floorboards inside the cabin open to get over top of that lock box and cut it from the top side. So it took them they basically disassembled that truck for half a day in front of the White House. It was pretty cool.
How the fuck did you do this?
This is a one panel. This is 1 3-mile panel of a drift net that was 30 panels long. So this was a 100-mile net in the Pacific that we confiscated, and then we got a permit to lay it out on the mall because we just wanted to show people the scale of this. You can't imagine what a 25-mile net looks like until you see one that's 25 miles long and you see the baby sperm whale drown in it or whatever you see. So we wanted to, sort of expose the kind of stuff. Shortly after we did this action, there were no limits at all. They were laying out 100,000 miles of net a night in the Pacific. The UN basically cranked down and took it down to 2.5 kilometers. So about 1.5 miles now is the longest net that you're supposed to be allowed to have. But everybody, of course, violates that law. But it was a big achievement. This is the Aurora Bridge here in Seattle, and those are all climbers. They're also lifeline to one another, and we had, I think, 8 climbers descend over the shipping channels to block factory trawlers from leaving Seattle to go up to Alaska. We had those climbers living on the ropes for about 50 hours, and every time the trawlers would come out, they would descend to a height where the rigging conning towers of these big floating factories wouldn't get through their blockade. It was a really hairball, awesome action. By the sort of the second day of them living on ropes, they were on AM or Good Morning America. Because the action was had real drama and it was the story.
It was about banning methane in the ocean.
It grew and grew and grew and became a national story as it went on. There's a similar action on the Astoria Bridge, I think, and blocking a nuclear battleship rather than a factory trawler. This is the keel of the Exxon Valdez. It was then operating for Chevron. Chevron was doing this giant PR campaign called "Do People Care?" And they would say, "Do people care about dolphins and whales and pelicans and mermaids?" Yes, people do care about those things. And and that's why we have double-hulled tankers, which we were ordered by the federal government to have after we fought for 3 decades. And so we said, we wanted to jump up there and said, do people die for oil? Yes, people do. Yeah, go ahead.
Question, was Cesar involved with that?
No, I think this is pretty far before his, at least my knowing his time. This is like probably 1998, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you know about this, okay, I'm getting confused with the one that happened like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been some good actions against the Valdez.
Yeah.
It's a nice target if you can find, it's not named the Valdez anymore, and it's hard to find.
This was September 98, this section.
Yeah. After the Valdez did that, it was interesting, and it's become this giant shell game. Not to use another bad pun of oil, but they like the oil companies don't own their tankers anymore. They're all owned by surrogate companies that we've never heard of now. So that they don't have those big floating symbols around anymore.
Well, can I just say something about the symbols?
Yeah.
Speaking of battle story, that action happened after the Ogoni tribe was raised down in cold blood. Some of whom were protesting naked to demonstrate their nonviolent act on an oil barge in Nigeria in July 1998.
Platform.
Yeah, on that platform. Oh, right, and here we have the name of the tribe right there, the Ogoni.
Yeah.
Chevron and Shell paid for the military of the Nigerian regime, right? And they brought in to machine gun down those people. They didn't bring military planes or military boats. They brought in Chevron boats with a Chevron logo and a Chevron helicopter with a Chevron logo to bring the soldiers in. And that is the last thing those people saw before they died.
Yeah, and so that was a few years after the Ogoni rose up in like 1995. 94 they started raising up. So there's 1 million Ogoni in the world, and they live in the Niger River Delta, some of the most fertile, beautiful land left in Africa, and they live over these vast oil deposits. And Shell had them first, and then Shell sold them to Chevron after they killed 8 Ogoni in 1996. This guy named Ken Saro-Wiwa. So when the Ogoni rose up, the leader was this guy Ken Saro-Wiwa. He's a brilliant satirist and playwright and kind of a humorist. And he started organizing the Ogoni. They had marches in Ogoni land against Shell that had 600,000 Ogoni of the 1 million Ogoni. So 60% of their population into their actions, right? We helped Ken do this awareness tour in the United States in 1995, and he went back after this tour. Right after this tour, he went back to Nigeria. He got arrested with 8 other Ogoni on these totally trumped-up charges that they, massacred a local tribe near them, and they were held in solitary confinement for almost a year, and the U.S. Embassy and the ambassador guaranteed us that they'd never let the charges stick, and they never let them kill the Ogoni, and then they were killed. They were executed after they were tried in front of a kangaroo court, and people did solidarity actions all over the world after this in solidarity with the Ogoni.
Talking about emotional response.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to mention something. I am from Middle East, and I'm glad you're showing this. So I want to say people in Iran, in Ogoni, and all over the world, they have stood up to those corporations one time or the other, and this is what happened to them. And this is why I think it's so very crucial to control these corporations in USA by the U.S. people, because we have done our share, and we cannot do it anymore. And every time we do, they divide and conquer. So it is time for people who live in America to stop these corporations, limit their power so they don't go and exploit others.
Yeah.
So that's my piece.
Yes, it does, Kate.
Challenge of our age, the challenge of our generation, I would say.
That's why I'm fighting over here, no more over there, because it doesn't make sense.
So these are some examples of culture jamming, or this is a great example of billboard liberation. Some culture jamming using corporate. It's a good segue. So using corporations spend trillions of dollars a year branding their logos and their taglines, their identities into our consciousness. Like children in the West now can identify something like 20 times more
You're
corporate
running
logos
because
than they can
you
plants
want that
or
raise
animals.
to be
and so
all you
they
can be,
tell
but
us
it's not easy.
they spend crazy amounts of
When you
money
work
telling
60
us
hours
the
a
story
week,
that they want us to
making
know about them,
sneakers in an
and
Indonesian
branding
factory,
these
and your friend
logos.
disappears
This one says you're
when
running
they
because
ask for a raise.
you want that raise to be
So
all that
think
you can be, but it's
globally
not.
before you
But it's not
decide.
easy when you
It's
work
so
60
cool
hours
to
a
wear
week
Nike.
making sneakers in an Indonesian factory, and your friends disappear when they ask for a raise. So think globally before you decide it's so cool to wear Nike. It's very powerful when you can take all of that momentum that's created by all that corporate money and all that storytelling, and when you can flip it, when you can take a little like a political jujitsu move, and you can use all of their momentum and their size, their mass against them by flipping the story on them.
Fucking hilarious.
don't stay there.
Joe Kimo.
One for all you smokers. There's Dick.
And he is a dick.
Stolen.
He's glad.
Just an action we did with Adbusters on the busiest shopping day of the year in the Mall of Americas. This is an action we did with the famous Adbusters flag at the National Democratic Convention in Los Angeles. So my wife is the climber on the left wall there.
So who's he?
Who's Adbusters?
Yes.
Adbusters is a great like a magazine of political art that specializes in fucking around with corporate kind of ad campaigning and the tools that corporations use for branding and so some examples of some puppets in action. This is a flat puppet that has an identical picture of Cesar Chavez on both sides, so it works really well in the giant crowd situations. This is more of a really beautiful 3D puppet, a paper mache puppet of Father Romero, famous liberation theologist who was assassinated by the hit squad trained at the School of the Americas. There's the Energizer bunnies outside the energy department talking about nuclear testing. This is a Reclaim the Streets action in Britain. Very inventive action. The Reclaim the Streets does a lot of reclaiming public space, fighting expansion of roads. This is a giant action fighting the expansion of a big interstate road in Britain, and they have huge speakers blasting, great house party music like doof music, doof, 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 so. And it's really ear-splittingly loud because they needed it as camouflage because there are people under the giant hoop-skirted women with jackhammers jackhammering up the street. so the women are dancing all day to the doof music, and the jackhammers are working all day. And when they walked away at the end of the day, there were trees planted in the street. But if you do that in the United States, you really have to do that one well, because fucking with roads and destroying roads is not the same as it is there. Right?
And you get the soil faster than you do with ours.
Right.
There's some cobblestone streets in Seattle.
I don't think they even got through that. They put a bunch of mulch in.
Just saying.
A hole, and they had to declare victory. So the Raging Grannies. I put this in there because I don't have a good shot of, and maybe somebody else will talk about it, but I don't have a good shot of the ethical shoplifting. But these are the New Hawk people from Bella Coola on the mid-coast of British Columbia. they pioneered this tactic known as ethical shoplifting. So they live in some of the last untouched roadless areas in all of North America. They have these incredible ancient red cedar, western red cedars, that it is theoretically illegal to log, but they get logged all the time, and they end up on Home Depot shelves. And so the New Hawks sent their hereditary chiefs to Europe to tour Home Depots and to identify red western cedar products, and then to take it from the Home Depot without paying for it. So they would walk out very publicly wearing their chiefly regalia, and they would take this stuff to Interpol and say, this was stolen from our lands. We want you to prosecute Home Depot.
Nice.
These are the Penan of the Borawak in Indonesia, and they're the sort of inventors of modern day forest defense tactics. They invented the blockade and the tree sit and tripods, all this stuff that we think about for Earth First. Was pioneered by the Penan. They had the dubious distinction of being the most endangered people on Earth because Mitsubishi Corporation was logging the Sarawak faster than any place on Earth. And a bunch of Earth First folks went over there and studied with the Penan and then came back. Yeah.
I think a couple of months ago in Indonesia, they have a tribunal court for Bush and Cheney, and they kind of condemned them for the war criminals, and they are not allowed to go to Indonesia.
Right on. This is so early in Earth First, it's pre-exclamation point Earth First. There's a tripod action in a national forest. That's a pretty big tripod. It's a steel pole tripod. I'm sure somebody will talk about tripods in your blockade workshop. This is a tree sit with a ruckus guide, Jia Ching Chen, in a giant ancient redwood that we built like a circular platform around. Some different forest actions. This is when we were, basically invented the word old growth around this time, and we were constantly having arguments about whether it was one word or two words, old growth. But we needed like this sympathetic character in the forest, right? Charismatic mega fauna. The trees aren't fauna, but they're flora. Charismatic mega flora. They kind of the forest movement invented this spirit bear, the white spirit bear of the mid BC forest. You need to have sympathetic characters in your stories. So these are the Uwa people of Colombia. They live in the cloud forest in Colombia, and they were fighting Occidental Petroleum, a smaller but still giant oil company that had the concessions on beneath the Uwa where they live. And we helped them helped to bring their leaders with Rainforest Action Network to Los Angeles to Occidental Petroleum's shareholder meeting, and we took over Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, like the busiest street in Los Angeles, and took over the Oxy meeting. And it was a really great action because Rand did a great job of controlling the message at every level. If you look at, they've got these small placards, they've got these larger but still portable handheld banners, they've got the T-shirts. So it didn't matter, what photographers decided to shoot, whether they were shooting portraits or panoramic shots. They had to get the message. These are the Free Tibet movement using their religious regalia. It's really powerful when the monks and the Anis, the nuns, go into action. This is outside of Goldman Sachs headquarters on Wall Street, and Goldman Sachs was doing an IPO, an initial public offering on a huge petro project on the Tibetan plateau, and violating the Tibet's sovereignty at every level imaginable. And they did this great but really simple action. They knocked something like $5 billion off of the expected market capitalization of this IPO with by creating the controversy around it that they did that day. This is the Tibet movement in action in the streets of the WTO, the streets of Seattle. They do some just incredible political theater These little girls were the stars of the day. One says, laborer number 3095, clothes factory, I work 15 to 17 hours a day. Slave labor, the prison labor that goes on in Tibet is, ridiculous, and people don't know about it. This is an action that we did the day before the giant sort of shutdown action in Seattle. This is November 29th of 1999, and I'm the climber on the left.
Josh, the climber on the right?
There's a guy named Harold Lindy. I almost dropped. I did drop. Yeah. So when you climb, you have to lanyard everything safely in. I jumped into this climb sort of at the last minute, and I stupidly brought my own personal cell phone. I had a cell phone for media calls and stuff, but I had my own personal cell phone. And I was pulling the banner across the crane, like the sausage roll, out of the other climber's pack, and just pulling as hard as I could because I didn't have the right gear. And the guy that was my safety guy that's up on the arm of the crane looking at my anchor, I saw it, he's looking down at me. I saw his eyes go wide, and I looked down and I saw my cell phone spinning in space, and I keyed on my cell phone for a second, and then I looked beyond my cell phone and I saw a cop. Like that, and I was like, and it fell at his feet and smashed, and I almost killed this cop that day, which would have been a real problem.
It's really hard to control that message.
Yeah, really tough to control. So
democracy this way, democracy that way. When I tell them.
Yeah. And kill cops with technology and science. That's something it would have been something else. So it's an important safety tip to just have your shit lanyarded on when you're in a climbing situation. This is the steel workers.
Sheet metal. Sheet
metal workers marching that day. So just a couple great sort of quick case studies. This is Bear Butte in South Dakota. It's a super sacred place to the Lakota people. It's kind of it has a creation myth involved with it, and it's really amazing spiritual place. When you go there with Lakota people and climb the mountain, there's these little prayers, these bundles of tobacco hanging from the trees, and just in these little places, and it reminded me of being in like Tibet or something, And we worked quite extensively with the Lakota Action Network on saving this place. Like, it's terrible, the desecration that Bear Butte is threatened with. Like, the largest biker rally on Earth happens at the feet of Bear Butte. What we were fighting with the Lakota like 5 or 6 years ago was a giant gun range that this asshole guy wanted to build at the foot of Bear Butte. And he had tons of money, and he controlled the narrative, he controlled the story for a while. And the story that he told was, these fucking Indians are complaining because, it's going to upset their prayers on this mountain, and there's nothing like that's going to happen. The gunshots from that far away are going to sound like a rubber band snapping. And there's nothing to worry about. And so the Lakota Action Network organized Pine Ridge and other Lakota communities, and they went to a public hearing where it was kind of like a rubber stamping hearing where they're going to approve this gun range, and they filled it with hundreds and hundreds of Lakota, and the guys up front went to start the meeting, and every Lakota had a really thick rubber band with them, and they stretched their rubber bands and they started snapping their rubber bands in the meeting, just snap, 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 hundreds of people snapping, and it was just, it created this kind of like, just, annoying, crazy kind of disruption to the meeting. They couldn't finish the meeting, and they seized this guy's story. Right? They created a bigger story than his story. This is an action that we did on the Supreme Court.
That's amazing.
Projection stuff. Bill might have shown. What you showed that? What videos did Bill show? He showed this one with the Mission Impossible music. All right, I won't show that one. Okay, so this is a tactic that I've been digging lately, which is, these corporations that we're battling against, they are criminal syndicates, right? They're constantly breaking the law, and overtly breaking the law, and consciously breaking the law, and we have this right to, as citizens, to arrest criminals. And so this is a Greenpeace action at the Chamber of Commerce, where they did this. You know, they had these Greenpeace cop cars. Greenpeace has all the money in the world, so they can do really fancy shit, right? So take this with a grain of salt. You don't have this kind of resources, but you can make giant crime tape and do some great stuff. We've been playing around a lot with this idea that the 99% has a posse, and that we're going to roll as a posse and confront corporate criminals, and we're going to, we've foreclosed on a bunch of banks lately, and created giant foreclosure tape, 99% foreclosure tape, and just kind of turning the tables in the story, making the corporations the criminals and the people the law enforcement. Doing wanted posters. This is an action that we did around healthcare that was called Citizens Posse. This is a quarantine action that we did at the Koch's giant secret meeting in Southern California. So we did giant quarantine tape. These are some human banners or human murals. One by 350. This is one that Greenpeace did with a Picasso line drawing on Miami Beach. This is 1,000 people. The federal government was prosecuting a bunch of Greenpeacers on these really trumped up, fucked up charges when Greenpeace did this. And this was John Ashcroft was doing it, and they backed down after this action. This is one we did with 1,500 people on the beach in San Francisco. Tax to 1%. There's with the Golden Gate there. All right, so I want to show a couple videos and talk about the actions that went into the videos. So did Bill show the Target action? Yeah. Okay, so I won't show that one again. I'll show another musical action that we did about a year before the Target action. This is at sort of the summit of the entire healthcare, the entire insurance industry in Washington, D.C., sort of the first year of the, like right after Obama got in the heart of the healthcare fight.
All right, so kind of trying to put in perspective, where are we?
This guy is the central scumbag.
Today, so I think the AM staff is in the bag trying to provide psychic compensation. Thank you.
No, thank you for giving the public option and blocking any hopes of its adoption. Thank you, sir.
Competition is an old American tradition.
Yes, no, says no, it corrodes, right?
No, the option's not dead.
Or red, explain. Who let these people in here?
Let's hear it for the 8-hit singers. One option without it, it's a giveaway.
What did you think of that, sir? Did you like the song?
Yeah, sounded very good.
So we worked with a bunch of trained, sort of labor singers, and we worked a lot on that action before we pulled it off. Right? They really knew their words and stuff, and then we had a number of people filming. So we didn't quite have enough because the shaky camera at the very end. That was my partner Andrew, who was just really pumped up on adrenaline. But this action, it's super simple looking in a lot of ways. We mixed it up. We had a cut go out 4 hours after we did it that the media picked up on. Rachel Maddow covered it, and then so we have a version without the subtitles that has like 50,000 views. That was the first thing that we rushed out the door to get earned media with. Then we did one with the subtitles, which is much better to watch because, I mean, who rhymes with dachshund these days, you know? Rhymes public adoption with sniffing out waste just like a dachshund? I mean, come on. And this one has a couple 100,000 views. And, so it's not like the Target thing, which has 2 million, 2.5 million views now, but it got a lot of earned media. And it's pretty fun action, pretty fun video. And when you roll into action to do one of these, kind of interventions that you are trying to create a piece of an asset, a piece of media, a piece of content with, you got to have the team that, you got to have some great shooters. You got to make sure that you mic your singers, because a lot of times, especially in a contested space like this, you're shooting with really small stuff. There's not good microphones. Even if somebody has a pretty good shotgun mic. What we do a lot is put a digital recorder on each singer. They're really cheap, and so you're just taking sound right off each person. But then you need a great editor who can take all those different files. He's going to have she's going to have 4 different sound files and 3 shooters, tapes. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to suck in and start to play around with and start to edit. So we have some, since we've been doing this stuff for years, we have some good stables of editors. Here on Vashon, I have a great editor, and down in the Bay Area and in New York, so that we can make sure we get the stuff in the right people's hands, because it takes real talent to make a compelling piece of media out of this stuff. Just a couple other actions. Here's one where we made the really compelling piece of media that was central to this action we made here on Vashon in a completely uncontested space. But this is a real thing. This is an example of the battle of the story, right? Does everybody? Everybody knows the Koch brothers, yeah? Okay. And this is at the Lincoln Center, which is owned. I mean, David Koch gave the New York State Ballet like $60 million to put his name on the Lincoln Center, right? So it's the David Koch Theater. It's during a really giant extravaganza gala where their whole board is there, and it's a red carpet night. And we shot a commercial here on Vashon that is a Coke commercial, but it's the classic Coca-Cola commercial. You guys are all pretty young, but yeah. So there's it's a classic commercial that Coke did in the 70s called "I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke," and they created it to sound like a folk song, and it was like just made for the commercial, and the band that did the commercial stuck together as a band, wrote the rest of the lyrics, and the song that started as a commercial went to #1 on the charts. So it started as a commercial, but it was the #1 song in America and many places in the world. This iconic Coke commercial, and it starts out, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke." So here is our response to that.
I'd like to buy the Coke, the world, so they leave our zone. Then go back to Park Avenue and crawl beneath their stone. I like to teach the folks about a true democracy, where working class takes corporate hats, proceed to shining sea. I like to give the folks the birds from my whole family. Just keep your phony culture warm and give your cooking tea.
So that was a pretty fun one. And I mean, the guy that shot this, who is my editor on Vashon, like, he shot it with so much love. I mean, it's scene for scene the original commercial. I mean, if you look at the two of them, it's nuts. And it's a fun thing to go into battle with a piece of art like that. I mean, when we showed that on the side of the David Koch Theater, you know, as big as a drive-in movie, and had 1,000 people singing along with the commercial, it was just super powerful. And that Koch song now is just something great to roll into battle with against the Kochs. We shot it as a perfect 1-minute commercial, and we may try to use this. There's a crowdsourcing fundraising platform for media that's called Loud Sauce,